Hello and welcome. I am Exit Live, and this is my podcast. Today, my co-host is Jory. Say hello, Jory. Jory. Where do we go? Where's
Hello,
Jory?
everybody.
Yep. Go
Hello.
ahead. Do it again. Yep. Jory, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Okay. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. All right. So, today we're going to do a little something different with this podcast than we normally do. We're going to do a fact or fiction segment. Neither Jory or I have had this experience with this particular paranormal phenomenon, which is Blak Eyed Kids. So, what we're going to do is present ideas, some theories, show you some pictures about Blak Eyed Kids, and we're going to have you guys tell us if it's fact or fiction. And we're going to talk about if it's fact or fiction as well. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so everybody be nice to moderator Maya and say hello. And say hello to my producer Jeremy, who's working very hard.
Hi,
We
Jeremy.
will not be able to... Hi, Jeremy. We will not be able to see your comments. So what's going to happen is, if you have a comment on the subject we're talking about, you have your own story, your own experience, go ahead and post it. If it's something that needs to be talked about immediately, Maya will tell Jeremy, and Jeremy will tell us in our ear, and we will address the topic. Otherwise, if you want, you can post your subjects, and at the end of our video, we'll go ahead and talk about your opinions, your ideas, your statements, whatever you guys want to talk about, okay? We'll have a period where we can talk back and forth. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Also, one more thing. We're gonna in about 3 podcasts, we're wanting to switch this. Don't cough at me, Jory. You just blew my ears out.
Sorry. I have bodily functions.
We are wanting to move this forum to Switch. What'd I say? Twitch. We want to switch to Twitch. And so you guys can leave your opinions about how you feel about that as well. We think it's an easier forum to deal with, that Jeremy can do more on the production side, and then the videos would be posted over here as well. All right. So what we're going to talk about is Blak Eyed Kids and how the subject... Blak Eyed Kids have been around for a long time, but they really gained in popularity in 1996 when there was an account written by a very prominent Texas reporter who worked for the Abilene Reporter, and his name was Brian Bethel. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that, Jor?
Yeah, so there's a history of Blak Eyed Kids dating, from what I've seen, at least undocumented reports, all the way back to the 1950s or so. But in 1996, give me a second here. In 1996, Brian Bethel went into a mailing list because back in 1996, the internet wasn't as powerful or as outreaching as it is now.
Well, yeah, it was basically just one step above DOS, which is a black screen and writing on it, right?
Right, yeah. So he went on a paranormal mailing list, and he was genuinely disturbed by an event to a point where he felt like he had to talk to friends of his on this mailing list, and pretty much what had happened was he had gone to go pay a internet provider bill in his town, and it was at night, not a lot of people around. He was in his truck just writing out the check to get out and drop off, and he hears a banging on his door, and he looks over and he sees these two boys, and he described them as between the ages of 9 and 12. He said they were olive skinned. One was curly headed, and another was red headed with freckles. And they were wearing pullover hoodies. And they had told him that they were there in the area to see, I think you said that they described it as films.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the money to see the films, and they needed to ride back to their parents' house to get their money, and if he could take them back, they would appreciate it. But the entire time that they were talking to him, he described that he had this overwhelming fear of like coming off of them.
Right.
He felt deathly afraid of them for some reason.
He wouldn't even roll his window down all the way. He was so afraid of these children.
Yeah, he just rolled it down a couple of inches. And as he was trying to process the fear he was feeling while just talking to these kids, he noticed that their eyes were pitch black, coal black. Mm-hmm. And he was mesmerized. He couldn't understand what was happening to him, which I imagine all of us in that situation would be in. And right. They were saying, "Sir, we can't go into your truck unless you invite us. We can't do anything unless you invite us in your truck." Mm-hmm. And he took that opportunity to flip his truck in reverse and hoof it out of there. The fear of the situation was so overwhelming that he had to get out of there. That was a fight or flight option for him.
Right.
So it scared him profoundly because right away he got a very dreadful sense of fear from them. Before he even saw their eyes, he was already afraid of them. And their speech patterns didn't make sense to him for children that were supposed to be 9 to 12 years old. They actually were talking like very mature adults.
Right. Yeah, he said that as a reporter, he had interviewed children numerous amounts of times, and they were always sort of the same. They would be fidgety, rock back on their feet, back and forth, be very shy, and he said always very, very, I'm sorry to bother you. I afraid to talk to an adult, like, oh, adults must be doing something important. Even though he was interviewing them, they were always very apologetic, and I'm sorry. And he had said that the kids had come at him in such a way where they were like in control of the situation, which was something that had set him off as strange because they weren't speaking to the voice coming out was a child, but the way they held themselves, the way they spoke was not childlike. And then the way that story became well known is that he sent it to his family and friends in an email list. So because of that, if you look up the history of Blak Eyed Kids, a lot of people consider that his story to be the very first creepypasta. However, he's a very well-known, very well-respected reporter, and he claims and puts his reputation as a reporter on it that this was a very real experience.
Yeah, as recently as I believe 2014, he was on a show on Destination America called Mysteries and Monsters in America, where even in 2014, he still claimed to have this experience happen to him. Almost 20 years later, he has not backed down from it.
Right. So I think that that's very interesting. I think that it's very interesting that people automatically want to say, well, that was a creepypasta, when they're talking about a and I'm going to say this. I am as cynical as you can get. So I don't know if this is true, a fact, or a fiction. I really don't. But I think that when you have information coming from somebody who's very well regarded in his area of expertise, that you would automatically just dismiss it as just a story when, like you said, from 1996 to a couple of years ago, he's still claiming that this was a very true encounter. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think that, people, I think it makes people feel comfortable to be able to dismiss other people's experiences, regardless of how well regarded they are, how long this man had been a reporter, still is, to just say, oh, well, that was the first creepypasta, and then the rest of us who have written creepypastas all the way since then it sort of negates any experience like I talk about real experiences on my channel. So it lends to negating any real experiences by just saying, well, it's just a story.
Right, and in a sense, it's easy to dismiss his story because even for me, I've only really been hearing about Blak Eyed Kids in just the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't something that I was privy to for a while. So when you hear Blak Eyed Kids without reading Brian Bethel's story, you get a sense that it's probably a creepypasta because, and I'm sure we'll touch into how their behaviors are, but it just seems very much like a creepypasta, like a Slender Man type story. So It's easy for people to not believe it because even for someone like me, I've never had an encounter with Blak Eyed Kids. I haven't even heard of them up until just a couple of years ago. So I agree. It's very easy to just shuffle it into that's a great story.
Right. So what we're gonna do is read about the different kinds and the thoughts on Blak Eyed Kids, and then we're going to address the subjects separately. So this is basically going to be an outline, and then we're going to address other people's opinions, our opinions. So for those of you who aren't familiar, and by the way, I do want to say this real quick. I have a Facebook page that's Exit Light, and also my UK co-host has a Facebook page that is Paranormal and Supernatural, and that is on Facebook as well. It's Paranormal and Supernatural World. Maya can get the links to that and put those down there. If you guys are interested in keeping up on paranormal news, scary stories, that type of thing, Robert does a great job of helping both his channel and my channel keep up with those topics. And it's also where you guys will know when I remind you that we're going to do a live stream, a podcast, and also on my Twitter if you want to follow on that. And Maya can post that too. Okay, so what are Blak Eyed Children? Blak Eyed Children, or Blak Eyed Kids, the term is interchangeable. You can look it up, and you can look it up under either name, and they're a relatively new phenomena. The first popularized report comes from Brian Bethel, which we discussed. Since then, hundreds more encounters have been posted, all with varying degrees of credibility, which is, of course, because you're going to have people who, have prank videos and just try to get attention. And so we're going to go over, are Blak Eyed Kids real? The first question, of course, is, are Blak Eyed Children an urban legend? Snopes says that they're an urban legend, of which, of course, they would. I mean, of course they would. If Snopes wants to be called, reliable or whatever, they're going to not verify things like Blak Eyed Kids, because those kind of topics are on the fringe. And what we're going to talk about today is your opinion of whether you guys think it's fact or fiction. Blak Eyed Kids are generally described as appearing between the ages of 6 years old and teens. They commonly look like they are out of place in appearance, most notably in their clothing style, which tends to be as They're dressed in an older decades of clothing. Typically, people that encounter black-eyed kids will note that their clothing looks to be of the wrong time period. Generally, they arrive in groups of two, which is the stories I've mostly heard is two, and this says two or three. Although I really haven't heard any of threes, but I have heard lots and lots of twos. Have you heard of threes, Jory?
I have heard people encountering groups of three, and I've even heard a couple stories where they encountered just an individual black-eyed kid.
Yeah, I've heard of the individual ones too. It says when speaking to BEKs, many people report that they have odd speech patterns. Common phrases are repeated, like they say, "Can I come in? Can I use your phone? Can you take me to my mother?" And don't really veer off the script. They often request assistance, and when people encountering them decline their request, they can also seem to elevate their demands and become verbally aggressive in tone, and possibly even employ some level of psychic domination to gain compliance to their demands. In all regards, they appear to be physical beings, not phantasms, not ghosts or black figures. They are, for lack of a better term, flesh and blood creatures of some type. Now, of course, their defining feature is their jet black eyes. Of course, the primary feature being jet black eyes, and we're going to come back to that a little while later when we're talking about the theories that they're demons, the theories that they're aliens, and how those kind of go together with the black eyes. None of the accounts for black-eyed children say anything other than black eyes. They all have black eyes. So the theories are that black-eyed children could be demonic. There are theories that they are alien hybrids, humanoids, and aliens. And we have a couple more theories also, that they're vampiric and that they're time travelers that we're going to discuss. And so here's what happens to people that let black-eyed kids in. Are you on this page with me, Jory? Do you want to read that part?
I'm on the page with you. Okay, here we go. You skipped ahead. All right, I'm there. Okay. What happens to people that let black-eyed kids in? It is clear from people's meetings with them that it is a negative encounter. The feelings of dread when approached by them, and then the negative long-term effects afterwards, are proof of that. What happens to people that let them into their homes is still not fully known, but we should expect the worst. There are accounts of people letting them in, but the few reports of this are from people that realized their mistake and quickly fled. Considering that they tend to target lone people, we can only assume that they are in some sort of predation mode. What they do with people is, of course, unknown, but many people go missing each year and are never found.
So I want to address a question in the comments real quick, and it says, do you think if something is made up on the internet and enough people believe that it's a true story, could that actually come to life, come to being? Could that bring something up? What do you think?
What's funny is there's an episode of Supernatural where something like that happens, where somebody goes online and creates an urban legend, and enough people believe in it to where it gives it enough power to actually become real.
Right.
And I think that also tends to kind of hopping subjects, but I think that also bleeds into the Ouija board, because I believe that the Ouija board itself isn't harmful. It's what people do with it that's harmful, as in giving energy to their situation that they're in. So could somebody create something online and enough people believe in it to create it as something real? I don't put it out of the ballpark as a definitive no, because it's still the supernatural. It's still something that we don't quite understand yet.
Mm-hmm. I also think that the power of suggestion is very powerful. And so if enough people think something's real, eventually people are going to think they see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
So if enough people are talking about black-eyed children, and at some point you see a child that sort of resembles that, in your mind, you could connect that to black-eyed children and believe that what you saw was a black-eyed child.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are easily susceptible to that sort of type of thing. So, I think it could be either, honestly.
Yeah, I think either or. I probably would lean more towards the power of suggestion.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a crazy world we live in, so you never know.
Right. So it says how to protect yourself from black-eyed kids. Luckily, oh my goodness, I'm having one of those days. Sorry, you guys. I statistically
I've asked
speaking,
Exit Light to stop drinking before we start the podcast, so she's working on it, guys.
It's going to take me a minute. Statistically speaking, you are unlikely to encounter a BEK. However, there is one important thing to be aware of. Many people report that prior to their BEK encounter, they were not very religious. A specific religion doesn't seem to be a factor, and it may be simply that having a strong faith in anything makes you less of a target to black-eyed children. It could be that they are looking for people that are easily dominated mentally or physically, and people without a solid belief system are easier to go after. Which can I just disagree with that right now? I think that people. I'm gonna disagree with my own.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
I'm gonna say that people who aren't religious or aren't inclined to have a faith, I think they're going to be less inclined to believe in something like black-eyed children. I think that they're going to be less inclined maybe to even believe in paranormal and supernatural things. I think if you have a religion, you already believe, like, let's say you're a Christian. You already believe in something you can't see, right? And you already
Mm-hmm.
believe in something called the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. So, and you already believe that there's angels. So you're halfway there to what it's not a hop, skip, and a jump. It's like a hop to believing in the paranormal. Where if you're somebody who's like, that's not true, I don't believe in that, I don't think you're going to be inclined to believe in really anything supernatural. What do you think?
I think it's more of a focus on not necessarily believing in God or believing in a supernatural as just being positive or negative. Like the article continues on and says that they're attracted to beacons of negativity. So maybe it's not necessarily that you don't have a believe in a religion so much as that you're negative on yourself. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe you're even suicidal.
Right.
And they're attracted to that. But yeah, I can also see what you're saying. Like if you believe in God, then you already have your foot halfway through the door and believing in the supernatural. So
Right.
I guess it just depends on how you want to take their article. I feel like they probably are focused more on, if we want to go to the fact that they're predators, focused on finding people that have issues in their lives, whether you're depressed or whether maybe you're going through a divorce or just in a situation where you feel alone and helpless, and they're attracted to that maybe.
Right. I think that's a good idea. I think that happens with a lot of the paranormal, though. I think that a lot of the paranormal.
Yeah, which, it can also be keyed into demonic activity. A lot of demonic activity comes from people who feel alone in this world, and they don't have a lot of faith in themselves, and they feed on that. So.
Right. Well, okay, so Rob wants to ask, but if you don't believe does that mean the supernatural doesn't believe in you? Okay, Rob. All right, I see. I got you. You're right. That's a good way of thinking of it, because there are supernatural, I believe. I know Jory believes that there are supernatural things and experiences that are very real. So you're right. But my question to you then is, if you don't believe in the paranormal, if you do not believe in the supernatural, if something does happen to you, would you just write it off as, you know, that must have been the wind. That must have been the cat that knocked it over. That must have been something outside. And are you less likely then to, tell anybody or believe in it? If you don't believe in it, will you write it off and make it an excuse? So go ahead and get back with me, Rob. Or maybe it's diabetes, Rob. It could be diabetes. You don't know.
Just to chime in on Rob's question, so he's saying if you don't believe in the supernatural, is it possible that the supernatural doesn't believe in you?
No, he's saying, I think he means, but just because you don't believe doesn't mean the supernatural isn't real, isn't there, and they believe in you. So can you have an experience? Will they affect you, right? Is that right? Is that correct, Rob? Hold on a second. I need Maya or Jeremy to chime in and help me if there's a comment.
Because I think it's easier. I think it's easier for humans to be dismissive of the supernatural rather than the supernatural to be dismissive of humans. In that sense, because obviously they can see us, or
right.
They can experience us. We're not going anywhere.
Right. Okay. So yeah, he means even if you don't believe, the fact is, well, that we believe that it's a fact, and then you would still have paranormal experiences. And I say yes, Rob. Yes, but I think they'll excuse it more often than not.
Well, I mean, that harkens back to my father, who was a complete non-believer until he saw a shadow figure walk up the stairs, and he saw it with his own eyes. Now, this was a guy who had zero belief system in the paranormal. Zero. Did not believe in it whatsoever. And watched a shadow figure walk up our stairs. So in that sense, I don't think it matters whether you believe or not. If you're in a situation where there's going to be supernatural activity, it will probably happen to you. And you could probably try and dismiss it all you want, but ultimately you're going to have to sit down and start coming to the realization that what you saw was not the shadow of somebody or the wind or whatever. That was a genuine spirit or entity or ghost, whatever you want to label it.
Right. And in that situation, he became suddenly more open and then witnessed more examples of the paranormal. Witnessed other shadow figures, saw, had an encounter with something on the other side of a door that wouldn't let him open to get into his two children. So I think that once you do make that leap, once you do become open, so maybe there's two type of people. I mean, in that regards, non-believers that will become open to the idea if they're exposed to it, and then those who will excuse it and just no matter what. And Rob says maybe that's why people go crazy, because their brain can't cope. And right, maybe if these things keep happening to you and you just make up an excuse and will not acknowledge that this is a possibility, maybe that is something that triggers something in the mind and breaks them. And in that case, it seems like that would be a destructive force of the paranormal that you're working with.
Unless you're just so solid in your non-belief in the paranormal that something as mundane as watching a glass float off a counter and crash is enough to make you spiral, because everything you've ever believed in for how many years is now completely washed away.
Right. Yeah. So, and then Joanne asks, so are they demons? Do you mean what? Are what demons?
Blak Eyed Kids?
Yeah, is that what you're asking?
Assuming she's asking,
is it the Blak Eyed Kids?
Or demons?
I'll get back to your question when you respond, if you're asking if the Blak Eyed Kids are demons, because I think we're gonna talk about that too. So There's a video. There's yes, are the Blak Eyed Kids demons? Okay, so yeah, we're gonna come up on that, on the belief of them being demons. So there's a video, and Jory, for the life of me, I cannot think of that man's page. The fantastic, what is it?
Okay, so the video originally came from a YouTuber named Fantastic Daily, but you can no longer
Yes.
see his video on his channel because it's now privatized. But Sir Spooks created a video of the top 5 Blak Eyed Kid encounters on the internet, and it has 2 videos from Fantastic Daily on it that were privatized on his channel. So we found that video, and I believe we're going to link it for your viewers.
Yes, it's gonna be linked to that video.
Okay.
Maya just linked it. Yeah, and I watched that video. What do you think about that video? If our viewers go and watch that video, they're gonna have an opinion. And if you guys do go to that link after this, by the way, give me your opinion, because I watched the video. I have an opinion. They actually have, I think they have 2 of his videos up there. One where he spots a Blak Eyed Kid. He gets out of his car to go find it, which, can I just say, I don't understand why anybody gets out of their car, leaves their house, does anything when you're seeing something supernatural. Just don't. I've seen the movies. It doesn't end well. Stay in your car.
Disclaimer, do not try this at home.
Exactly. No, thank you. What do you think of that video? What do you think of his? Did you see both of his videos on there, Jar?
Well, I watched all 5 videos, and 2 of Fantastic Daily's videos are in that collection of 5. The first, so it actually starts with his experimental video, which he set up his laptop at his back door with the window open, and for 5, I believe it was 5 nights straight, he played this continuous sound on a loop to attract Blak Eyed Kids to his house because he had been seeing them.
Right.
On the 5th night, he captured what he believed was a Blak Eyed Kid, and I mean, it's hard to say whether or not it was just somebody who went on his back porch, but the vibe is very creepy from that video. I will admit that it definitely sent a chill down my spine watching it. Whether it's real or not, I don't know. I don't know Fantastic Daily, so I can't say for sure, but it's definitely a creepy video. As far as the one where you described where he got out of his car, that one's a little tougher for me because you see for just a tiny split second a face in foliage, and it's just I don't know. That one I can't say for sure at all.
Okay, well, that man describes himself as doing scientific experiments. He has created equipment that he can do searches for ghosts, etc. And he looks at what he does as being in a scientific way. I saw the video. Okay, let's talk about the first video where he had taken this sound, this vibration that he had been hearing, and extracted it from the rest of the noise around it to this particular pulse, and then he played it to attract the Blak Eyed Kids. And you see a figure stand on his porch, and I don't know this guy. So I can't say if it's real or not, and I'm not going to say if it's real or not, but my opinion is, to me, it looked like it wasn't real. It didn't look like a Blak Eyed Kid, for one thing. I enlarged her picture and looked at her eyes, and it didn't seem to have the very round, distinct black eyes. And of course, one of her eyes, I think, is covered in that first video. The second video, where he gets out of his car, the girl that they zoom in on, resembles the first girl quite a bit. And she doesn't seem to have those eyes either. So I really can't say. I don't know. I mean, it is a creepy video. It is a creepy, and he had set his computer up to face out of an open window to record it. And it is a creepy video. It does have a very creepy vibe. She stands up there, and then she sort of turns eventually to look at the computer camera, and then she turns around and walks off the porch. He left his window open with his computer in front of it. No, just don't do that. People, I'm going to tell you, don't do that stuff. Leave your windows closed.
And to go to that video again, he says that Blak Eyed Kid was on his back porch for an hour straight.
Right.
Before she finally left.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I know he also took a lot of time off, and because in that video they say that all of his videos are about Blak Eyed Kids, and I don't know when that video was made, but that is not true at this point. He has a lot of is there time travel sort of things where he talks about. So if you guys want to head over there and watch that video, do so after this. And let me know what your opinion was, because I don't know. I wasn't real sure about that one.
It's tough because the footage around her face specifically is a little grainy. You definitely you don't see eyes. I can't see eyes, but I don't see black eyes either. So it's.
And does it not look to you like it's almost a square photo superimposed on there? Because you see the top part of her, but there is an area around her that looks different from the rest of the lighting, I think.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I guess you could lean that way. Some of the footage reminds me of watching ghost shows, and they show you how to fabricate ghost videos, and they go into the behind the scenes of how they would manipulate the footage, and it kind of felt like watching an episode of one of those, but at the same time, there was still a real sense of creepiness with that video. There was a part of me that felt like it was real. But like you and I both said, we don't know Fantastic Daily. This is an experiment that he conducted at his house. I can't say for sure it's conclusive evidence.
Yeah, but we're not saying that here. We want to say, hey, go take a look. It's fact, or is it fiction? So
yeah, that's definitely up for opinion. I can't lean one way or the other because it does give me a creep vibe. But just go form your own opinion. Go check it out.
So another thing we want to talk about as a theory is that these children are vampiric. That the reason they have to say, "Can I come into your house?" and they say, "I can't come into where you are unless you invite me." And they did the same thing with Brian. In Brian's story, they were asking to come into his truck, and so that lends to a theory that they're vampiric. That they have to be, you have to allow them into your house. Which is a theory of, the urban legend or what, I don't know, however you see vampires, right?
Right, yeah. It definitely has that kind of feeling that this is how people created vampires in the first place, in that lore,
Yes. Yes, and yes, so the theory is, could that be why the whole lore of vampires happened? And so, I don't know. We had to touch on it. Okay, so let's get into the demons. Oh, go ahead.
Not to interrupt you, but I think it's difficult in that sense to say they're vampiric because we've already read that there's no evidence really of what happens to people upon letting black-eyed children into either their house or their vehicle. So, and with the few people who have been able to escape have said as soon as they realized what they did, they were able to escape the situation. So they don't even know what was going to happen to them in the first place. So
Right.
that one, I mean, it's a nice theory, and you can kind of see how the lore of vampirism was created using part of the lore of Black-Eyed Children, but who knows?
Right. Okay, so Rob, we're gonna move on to demons. Okay.
Okay.
Do you ever think you were gonna hear me have a sentence come out of my mouth that said, "Let's move on to demons"?
It's almost like a game show. We're moving on to demons.
And now demons.
Demons.
After this commercial break. So Rob asked a question, and he said, "Could it be the negative side of us manifesting in our reality, and could it be then called a demon?" Which, well, I suppose that anything's possible. You know, and the fact that everybody who I've read and heard that has said they've had an experience with this says that the feeling is just dark and black. And in this case, and later we're going to talk about UFOs, aliens, the best form to come in to be accepted by a human and not have them be afraid would probably be either a dog, a cat, or a child, right? That you're going to be okay with a child coming to your door.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I would open the door for a child easily.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that as far as the aliens or the demons go, that it makes sense that they would come in the form of a child. I'm going to read this. One of the more popular theories are that black-eyed children are some sort of demonic entity. This seems plausible due to their otherworldly presence and the phenomenon that seems to manifest around them, and with their seeming insistence that their target either let them in or allow them to help them with something. This harkens back to the old tales of, vampires not being able to enter a person's home without being invited. Being that they are corporeal beings, it may be that some sort of entity has possessed a child's body and is making use of it. In my experience, with exceptionally rare exception, demonic entities are only in solid form when they are inhabiting someone or something else. While the majority of missing children cases each year are the result of family member abduction, a small number are never explained, and the children are never found. It is not completely unreasonable that some of them could be being used to create black-eyed children. All right, that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
That's a really scary thought.
You can never really throw anything away from the realm of the supernatural, and that, I don't know. If you thinking of that as something that really happens is definitely freaky. It's definitely freaky to think that a small handful of kids could be turned into this.
Yeah. I don't know. But the thing is, though, here's what's puzzling to me is that while they feel super, super creepy, and while everybody says that everybody feels the same otherworldly experience, that they don't know what it is, but it makes them terrified. I read the story about this woman. It was Halloween night. It was 10 o'clock. They turned their light off finally, which that had to be a few years ago because around here your lights are off at 8. She said that her husband went up to take a shower. 2 kids came to the door knocking. And so, of course, she went to open the door because she was thinking, wow, they're out super late. But they were very young kids. And she said immediately she opened her door and then almost shut it all the way so just her face could be seen because she immediately had this feeling come off of them that there was something very wrong. and they told her that they needed to use her phone so they could call her mother. A lot of these stories are the children saying something about their mother, which is instinctual. If you say to somebody as a child, I need to contact my mother, I don't know where my mom is, I'm lost, we help you, right? So, I
Hmm.
mean, it's a brilliant disguise to come in if you're going to disguise yourself. But she said that she told them that she would call their mom, give me your phone number, and they kept becoming more insistent. I'll come into your house. I'll come into your house. And she said, do you not have a cell phone? And she said in her story, she's like, every kid has a cell phone. Well, not every kid has a cell phone. I think, but they said, can we use your home phone? And I think a lot of kids these days don't even know what a home phone is. But she said, I'll call for you. I'll call for you. And they just kept insisting. And she said no, and she closed the door. They stood on her porch for quite a while. She called her neighbor. Her neighbor saw them standing on her porch, and then they went under a streetlight and stood there, and her and her neighbor met outside, went to the streetlight, and they were gone. I think it's a general reaction that everybody has that you're first open to it, and then suddenly it's the feeling is so bad that you won't even help children saying they need to call their mom, which seems more like a demonic sort of a feeling. What do you think?
I agree. If you can open a door and right away know you're in a bad situation, that tends to happen to people who purchase a house, walk into it, and immediately they feel something wrong with the house. And the longer they stay, the more they realize they become under the influence of a demonic possession. So it makes sense that people would see these as demonic entities because the feeling tends to be the
Yeah,
same in the stories.
right, right. Okay, so are black-eyed children aliens? So I'm going to read this. Another theory is that, okay, by the way, Robert wants to say, has anyone ever wondered why Hollywood always depicts demons as having black eyes? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Yeah, that's interesting. I think black eye is sort of, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but it feels like there's a dead feeling. There's nothing behind the eyes. I hate masks. Here's something you guys can know about me. I am terrified of masks when they're being worn because you can't see oftentimes, facial expressions, the eyes, and to me, that is terrifying. So, black eyes, which looks like death, just darkness, is would probably be terrifying to me if I ever encountered that. Not good. So I think that Hollywood, and who knows? Who knows, chicken or egg? I do not know. Fact or fiction? I don't know. So aliens, alien hybrids. Another theory on what black-eyed kids might be that they are human alien hybrids. There is ample evidence that there is some sort of human alien breeding program going on, and the BEKs sharing the trait of solid black eyes with the gray aliens, which I'll get to that in a minute. I can see how people could make this conclusion. If black-eyed children are some sort of alien hybrid, the question is, what is their purpose? And every picture you see of an alien, right? The gray-headed alien, they have those huge black eyes, right?
Yep.
So that's a theory that could seem plausible. If you look at the black-eyed kids and their black eyes, they do look similar in shape and the color.
Yeah, that one's tough, but like I said, you can never throw anything out of the realm of the supernatural. It could be a possibility. I don't lean that way personally, but I can see why people would.
I I just have to keep going back to then what is the purpose? What are they doing? Why are they doing this? What would... First off, it says there's plenty of evidence that that we're doing alien-human hybrids, and if you have evidence of that, please send it my way, because I'd like to read about that.
And to Alex Jones, too. He would be very interested to read that.
Please. Oh. See, now I'm petrified. That's all you had to say.
We'll get into the paranormal world of Alex Jones later.
No, let's not. Not even. No. No. Now I'm terrified. I'm in the corner huddling. No. I just, like I said, wonder what would be the purpose. So I don't know. You guys, let me know. Do you think it could be alien hybrids? And if so, what would be their purpose? What is their purpose? And then the other one is that black-eyed children are time travelers. So I want to talk about this. And this is a story that happened on one of Art Bell's shows. And while we're at this part, let's say that Mr. Bell, who was a king in the paranormal supernatural world and did a lot to bring those subjects into the mainstream and to allow people to have conversations like the one we're having right now. He passed away last week, and I think that was a great loss to our community, the people who want somewhere to go and talk about their experiences, want somebody to listen to them and to not say, oh, I think that's crazy. And I think that it's a loss to our community. So R.I.P. Art Bell. And in fact, our producer Jeremy, he started becoming interested in paranormal stuff, fringe kind of topics, because of Art Bell and his show. So that's very sad. Okay, time travelers. So here's what this says. When Art Bell opens the phone lines, you never know what's going to happen. Such was the case on July 24th, 2015, so really not that long ago. By the way, Robert says they want to steal your soul. Remember, the eyes are the windows of the soul. Robert, that's scaring me. That's creepy. That's it. I'm not letting them in my house.
Well, it would feed into their predatory nature. Maybe that's what they feed off of, is human souls. But isn't that what demons feed off of in general? Which would then lead to Blak Eyed Kids being demons. So,
right.
Who knows? Fact or fiction?
I have made the decision, Jory.
Okay.
I'm not going to let him in my house.
I think we probably should have made that decision a while ago. I don't think I would let anyone near me whose eyes were no longer there, just filled with black pitch holes.
Do anybody see these people at during the day, or are they only nighttime? Do you know?
I have only read stories about seeing them at night.
Yeah, me too. And I've only seen pictures of them really looking like they're dressed in like 1920s sort of clothing. Why would you do that with an alien? Why wouldn't you send an alien who looks like every other kid on the block? You know what I mean? If you really want to trick people into letting them in the house, why don't stop making them look so freaky? I don't know who I'm talking to. Who am I talking to?
Well,
hello, demons?
If you want to harken them back to being demons, they don't have souls, so they don't know what it's like to have emotion towards fashion, or, they don't really care about humans in general. They're just doing the best they can to try and trick you, but they don't know how to be a human.
Right.
So I
Which is
think
why
that's
they
what their
also don't speak
weakness
correctly.
is. You're right. They speak proper because they probably still think humans today speak like we did in the 1800s. Well, we
Right.
mostly don't.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so it kind of leads to the non-human entity needing to trick us, but still not able to trick us because they don't know us.
Right. Right. And Rob's telling me not to let Blak Eyed Kids or him into my home. Rob, I just bought a whole bouquet of peacock feathers for you. So if you want to come over and get them, maybe not. All right.
He just said, "Don't let him into his house." I'm gonna go. Okay, you're on.
I've
You
been
got
warned.
yourself a deal. You got
I've,
yourself a deal. Any
I've
guy
been
named
warned.
Rob shows up to my house, I'm gonna tell him, nope.
Hold a peacock feather out because he's terrified of them. If he runs, you'll know that it was that Rob. Okay, so time traveling. I gotta get back to this. So, July 24th, 2015, during Midnight in the Desert's first open line show, and the long awaited return of this guy's personal favorite open time lines, a caller came in and insisted that these Blak Eyed Kids were forcing him to travel through time. And this is what his story was. He said, "Every time that it happens to me, I lose a little bit of who I used to be, Mr. Bell. Every time they force me to time travel, I lose a little bit of myself. I need to warn your listeners, do not answer for these children with black eyes. They are real, Mr. Bell. They are very real, and they will, and then dot dot dot, take you. They will not kill you, but they will make you disappear. Your soul, Mr. Bell, is gone. They will take your soul. They force me to travel back in time, back and forth, back and forth. In the future, hundreds of years. I've been back hundreds of years. I miss my family, Mr. Bell. I've had a wife. I had children, but I'm lost to time. I've lost them all. I can't even remember what they look like, because when I close my eyes, all I see are these children staring at me soullessly, forcing me to do their bidding." So, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, as for the caller, I feel bad for him. And if that's something that truly did happen to him, that is beyond freaky to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that I've experienced a lot in my life, but there's some things that these people say happen to them that I just can't wrap my brain around. Even now, I read this guy's story and I just say, is it paranormal or is it psychological?
Well, yeah. I think I think that's the issue with a lot of stories, whether people are seeing dark figures or seeing ghosts or UFOs. That's always how people look at it, right? There's two ways of looking at it, that it's possible or they have a mental illness.
Right. That's what makes this, I guess you could call it, field so difficult, is scientists even today will tell us that what we see are just psychological glitches in our brain. We just talked about sleep paralysis and night
Yeah.
terrors and how that's just all psychological.
Right.
And seeing shadow people, scientists will tell you it's psychological. Seeing ghosts is just a reverberation of the magnetic field that's coming from the earth. And while it's easy to say, all this stuff happens scientifically, I think you're hiding underneath those layers the fact that you're probably uncertain yourself, but you don't want to seem like you're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. I think that is it. People are afraid to seem like they're crazy. So this guy steps out and tells his story in a very understandable, sane sort of a way, right?
Yeah,
And
I mean, he could function clearly because he called into a
yeah,
radio show,
right,
and he's
yeah,
obviously a listener of Art Bell's, so he knows who Art Bell is, and he reached out to someone who he thought could help him. So, like I said, you want to feel for the guy, but the story, I don't want to say it didn't happen to him, but I'm also someone that has to have it happen to him, and so it's hard. That one's hard for me.
well, and that's why we decided to do this particular podcast as a fact or fiction, because
Yeah,
neither one of us has had this happen to him. So
yeah.
if you had said it happened to you, I would completely believe you, obviously. And
Well, I would hope so.
I assume if I had said it had happened to me, you would believe me. But since neither one of us have had this, we decided to come at it and tell the different theories and tell a few different people's stories and, get some opinions. What do people think? Is it fact or fiction?
I would like to know if any of your subscribers have encountered a black-eyed kid, because you have quite the following now. I would like to know if anybody who follows you. You don't have to be scared if you feel like you've had an encounter. Please let Exolite know, because I don't know anybody who's ever had this type of encounter, and I've only come across it recently. So it would be really interesting if anybody listening to this at all, and you can put it in the comment section now or later, if you've had this experience happen to you, because it would be really interesting to hear about. I've only been able to read it. It would be nice to have somebody at least link to this channel to be like, hey, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to tell you my story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of. No one's going to exploit you or think you're crazy or treat you in a demeaning manner. And if anybody has had that experience and is willing to come on as a guest and tell their experience, my followers, my subscribers, certainly wouldn't treat you in any type of an embarrassing way or make you feel like you're crazy. And that would be a really interesting story to hear.
Even if you know somebody that it happened to, relate their story or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So people will listen to this podcast after it's not live anymore. So even if you're not listening to it live, I get notifications for all my comments. Leave a comment if you want to talk to me off of YouTube. We can communicate through an email, or you can send me a message through Facebook on my Facebook Exit Light page, and we could discuss it, and I can, tell Jory, and if you wanted to, you could come on completely anonymous. You wouldn't have to tell your name or who you were speaking about or anything, and have a conversation with us. That would be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So, Rob says that now we have BEKs and time traveling, Slender Man and shadow figures and that sort of thing. He says people move on, and so does the supernatural. So maybe it's this particular, like the BEKs are really becoming a more talked about subject now. Maybe if they are time traveling, maybe this is a period in time where people were more likely to believe in that, in what they are, than in previous times, or more likely to believe that they're, like time travelers than something scary like demon, where obviously anybody who had seen them pre-internet, more open-minded would automatically go directly to demon, and a lot of people would still go directly to demon, and maybe this is a time period where they feel like they can try and, I don't know, be more accepted. But you guys got to talk. You got to do something better than showing up on porches.
I don't like to think of the BEKs, if they can time travel. I don't want to think of them in terms of being actual like scientific time travelers, because like you said, they come off as really creepy. They don't just show up to they don't, if you were a time traveler and you came from, like, let's say you came from the year 2130 and you came back to our time.
Yeah.
You would go to fellow scientists and be like, look what I've done. You wouldn't come to my door with a pullover hoodie or 1950s garb with your soulless pitch black eyes and try to get into my house so you can use my phone to call your mom.
Right,
So
right.
I can understand if BEKs can time travel, but I don't necessarily view them as time travelers in what we would think of in that sense, because they're also only appearing to us as children. Wouldn't a time traveler more than likely be an adult if they're creating that technology?
Yeah.
And come either solo or in probably larger groups, and then still in that case go to the scientific community and show their findings?
Yeah. See, that this is a confusing part. I could understand them coming as children, because like I said, people are going to be more open to children. And
Well,
so
but
even as a
still, why would
time
they show up
traveler.
to a random door and want to use a
By
phone
the
to
way,
call their
good night,
mom?
Joanne. Hold on, I'm sorry. Good night, Joanne. Thank you for coming. I know it's really late where you are. I appreciate it. Um, yes. Well, yeah, why would you go to a random door? And maybe it's farther than the 2000s. Maybe it's farther. Maybe they don't even know, haven't figured out, deciphered our language, except for a couple of sentences. And so they're saying home phone. Home phone. If a kid came to my door, to use the phone. I honestly think somebody would say to me, "Do you have a cell phone I could borrow?"
Yeah.
Rather than a home. And I don't. I by the way, I don't have a home phone. So that's an old a term to even now. It's still an old sort of a term to use. So who knows? That's why we're doing fact or fiction. I don't know. So you guys let us know if you think it's fact or fiction. If you think it's demons, aliens, time travelers. Let's hear what you guys want to say and what you think. And maybe we can do a whole other podcast at one point. And when people leave comments under this video, maybe we can address them again, because more people are going to watch it after we're off and it's not live anymore. Maybe we can go through and address their ideas, their theories. You never know. We could do
Yeah,
that.
follow up. Yeah.
Yeah, follow up. Could be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like discussing this topic because it wasn't something that either one of us had an encounter with. So we both had to like dig in and look and see what
Yeah.
these encounters are. So just so you guys know, this was Jory's idea, and it was a good one.
Well, I have come across Blak Eyed Kids in my various forms of research in the past couple of years, and I've never really treated it more than just stories. But ever since we started doing these live streams, I just thought it would be something interesting to talk about, see if any other people have had experiences like this. Like when I discovered that people were having the same experiences of me with the shadow figure that wore the cowboy hat and the trench coat. I always thought I was alone in that belief until I was using the internet and noticed other people were having it. So I just was interested to know if anybody outside of me just hearing stories from Reddit have encountered black-eyed children, and what was the feeling you had, and what scenario were you in, and what did you do,
Yeah.
and see if it mirrored other stories.
Yeah, I think that was a great idea because you don't know. There might be somebody out here who hears it and says, I've experienced that. And they didn't know to look up, like you didn't know to look up, like, Hat Man. What, you didn't have a name to what you were seeing. And maybe
Exactly.
they don't know that there is a whole section of what is BEKs or black-eyed children. Maybe they don't know to call them black-eyed children. Maybe they don't know what to call them. You know what I mean?
Right.
So maybe somebody can hear something like that and go, that is what happened to me.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I was hoping this live stream would do, is somebody would have the same thing happen to them that happened to me. Oh, wow, I've seen this before, and people have this happen to them. I want to talk about it. Well, here's your forum.
Right. Well, so if anybody, I think most of the questions were asked while we were talking. I think we answered most of the questions. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I would just, I know this is a fact or fiction topic, but I would just like to kind of throw my hat in the ring. I would kind of lean more towards the Blak Eyed Kids being a form of a demonic entity. I can't really describe, because there's so many different forms of demonic hauntings. It just feels like, to me, they have to be invited into your personal space, much like demons and other scenarios have to be invited into your personal space. It kind of makes sense to me with that flow, that they would be trying to get to you because they need something for you, whether it's them possessing you, whether it's them making you disappear from the face of the earth. Who knows? We don't know the outcome of it, but it just feels, just from what people describe as the feeling they get, and this is the black eyes, that it might just be another big ring of what we would consider a form of a demonic haunting.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think that that's where I would land as well. That the feeling, the instantaneous repulsion upon looking at children, that you know something is wrong and very wrong deep down into your core, feels like more, if it's a true experience, feels like more of a dealing with some sort of a demon. And Rob says, would you land on the White House lawn or try recruitment by stealing people's souls in the dead of the night? And yeah, you're right, Rob. You're right. It would seem to be a better plan to do something sneaky and that people could write off as, you're mentally ill, that's crazy, that's a creepypasta. And who knows? It could be.
Agreed.
So, all right. Well, if there's nothing else that you guys want to say or talk about, if there is, go ahead and put it up real quick and we'll give you a minute. And again, what? Oh, yeah. And I also want to tell you that I have a Patreon. If you are interested, of course, nobody is required to pay for my content ever. But if you're interested in that, my Patreon, the link will be put it up. And that would be awesome. I really, really appreciate that. I don't know if you all know what's going on with YouTube right now, but they aren't paying. Even the largest, biggest YouTubers are having their money taken away. They have such a wide net, and they're using AI technology to try and grab it, that even when it's not too long before I get to my 1,000 subscribers. Even when I get to my 1,000 subscribers, there's a very good chance that I will never be paid for the content, because I am pretty sure that all of my content will get caught in a web. There's lots of words you can't use, and there's lots of topics they don't want you to talk about. You're not even allowed to talk about the news right now without having your money taken away. So I think us YouTubers are going to have to rely more on things like Twitch and Patreon and having merch, which we've worked on. And anyway, so there you go. It's obviously not a requirement. I don't want anybody to ever think that it's a requirement ever. My content is free. It is simply up to each subscriber what they would want to do, and that's it. So, yes, Christopher Fowler, they work real hard trying to find reasons not to pay. That is true. All right, you guys. I want to thank each and every one of you who came. I want to thank you, Jory. I had a great time. I hope you did.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm sad I got to miss last week, but I was in the chat comments, and it was fun chatting with everybody.
Yes, he did show up, so that was very kind of him. I'd like to thank you, moderator Maya, for keeping on top of everything. And you too, my producer Jeremy, who's been working real hard behind the scenes and letting me know if there's something I need to see or say. And I hope you guys enjoyed this topic. And if you have any other ideas or suggestions for topics for podcasts, I'd really appreciate that. I'm not positive that I'll have a podcast next week. I have a family obligation, but I might. And when I do, I'll let you guys know. And thank you so much for supporting my channel and giving your time to come show up here today. I appreciate it. And again, thank you, Jory.
Yes, thank you for having me on, and a big shout out to my little brother. I know he's going to be busy this coming week, so I hope he has a good time, and I hope he wins.
Yeah, Jory's little brother, my son, plays for the men's junior Olympic team in volleyball, and we have a big week coming up. So I'll give him a shout out too, as he's not home with me right now. All right. Good night, and I'll see you next time.